Hey, happy Friday. This week Microsoft pushed out some surprisingly good updates for Windows, Intel managed to double its market share with GPUs, and an employee of Samsung apparently just stole a whole chip fab. Welcome to the Friday Checkout. This video was sponsored by Brilliant. Hey, have you ever wondered what beaming a Kindle straight into your eyeballs would feel like? Well, so did a company called Soul, apparently, who developed a pair of glasses with e-ink displays inside to help you read in style. E-ink tech can't get super high resolution as far as I know, so I do wonder what this will look like so close to your eyes, and the device also costs $350, which sounds like a pretty tough sell. Also this week, Adobe rolled out its Firefly generative AI to Illustrator after bringing it to Photoshop just recently, so now people like me can pretend to know how to draw, and Microsoft started selling genuine replacement parts for its Surface line, including screens, batteries, SSDs, and more for DIY fixes that are available on their own store. I really like this repairability trend. In sad news this week, Vivo announced leaving Germany following its sister companies of Oppo and OnePlus, which was probably caused by Nokia's lawsuit against the company, and other European countries might see a similar move from them too. And in bizarre news, we have recently learned that US spy agencies simply buy their data off of plain old advertising data brokers now. Apparently, commercially collected data is just fine even for the best of them. I mean, why go through all the trouble of hacking into people's devices if there's a billion-dollar industry doing this for you already? Kind of makes sense. In EV news, first Ford and now General Motors have signed deals to adapt their EVs to use Tesla's superchargers, which could potentially start turning the Tesla charger into the North American charging standard, while Europe and the rest of the world are likely going to stick with CCS2, so it's going to be the plug wars all over again. Then a judge ruled that Twitter's landlord can evict them from some of their offices due to the company not paying rent. Google might evict Twitter from their cloud due to Twitter not paying their service bills. And music publishers also sued Twitter for not paying a license for their music, unlike almost all the other social media companies. I mean, I guess just refusing to pay for all the services that you use is one way of becoming profitable short-term, but I'm not sure if this is a very viable long-term strategy. Then, talking of lawsuits, the United States FTC just set to Microsoft to hold their horses about their acquisition of Activision Blizzard, as apparently Microsoft was considering just basically ignoring the UK regulators saying no and just doing the deal anyway. Bold choice. And finally, for the brief, Reddit is on fire. 8,000 plus subreddits went on strike, with mods freezing their communities in protest of the company recently charging a ton of money for its APIs. 5,000 plus of those are still offline, despite the original 48-hour deadline having passed. The Reddit site itself is already starting to break. Google is becoming less useful without all the relevant search results. And meanwhile, the CEO of Reddit said that whatever, they'll just wait it out and people will get over it. That's a bold strategy and a great way to get basically the whole internet to hate you from one day to the other. Well done. Okay, for my first story of the week, Microsoft released 4 new updates for Windows that I think, if you put them together, actually become pretty meaningful. Starting with the small things, you know that purple icon called Chat that appeared on taskbars with Windows 11 and opened up a half-widget, half-app strange thing? Yeah, that's gone now, as predictably nobody used it. Second, you can now use Windows Ink to write on top of a text box to just input text, which is something that we've seen on other platforms, but nice. Third, what is called Win32 Isolation has just shipped in developer build, which allows traditional old-school Windows apps to run in a separate container, where they have to ask for permissions if they want to access stuff like your files. I don't think enough people realize that most classic Windows apps run with basically administrative privileges, which means they can do whatever they want on your system. And even though Microsoft has been desperately trying to change this for like 20 years already, this is still the case. Modern Windows apps already run in containers and have to ask for permissions, but Microsoft finally got their virtualization tech good enough so they can individually drop traditional Win32 apps into containers as well. And while the tech still requires buy-in from developers for now, this could be a huge security improvement going forward. And fourth, you know how AI is all the rage these days? Well, Microsoft is catching up in this regard finally too. AMD has just released the first real x86 chip with an NPU built in, which you can kind of think of as a dedicated AI chip sitting next to the CPU. These are in some of the new Ryzen 7000 laptop chips, and indeed this Wednesday we have learned that Microsoft and AMD have optimized some of the basic Windows Studio effects to take advantage of the NPU for more convincing background blur and eye correction and whatnot, with Windows Copilot workloads and speech recognition should follow suit at some point, and I guess third-party developers should soon take advantage of this too, like how we have seen big mainstream apps like Photoshop and Illustrator rolling out their on-device AI tools nowadays that should run much better with NPUs. NPUs have of course been common in smartphones for years. Apple Silicon brought NPUs to Macs not long ago, and Snapdragon introduced them to Windows a few years ago as well, but now AMD brought it to a mainstream Windows chip, and Intel is reportedly going to follow suit with a Meteor Lake as well. I think pretty soon buyers of PCs are not just going to ask themselves how strong a CPU and a GPU in their machine is, but also what an NPU can do for them, and while Microsoft has been behind in this category, at least they are catching up now. Okay, and for my second story of the week, Intel surprisingly doubled its GPU share and turned this business from terrible to maybe viable. The jump is from 2% to 4%, so they're not exactly overthrowing Nvidia yet, but hey, after less than a stellar launch, that is still a really good showing. Intel also announced 2 new board partners for its GPUs, and while they are relatively small companies called Sparkle and BioStar, it's a sign that at least other companies are taking bets on Intel's GPU tech, and 50+ games have apparently been optimized for Intel's AI upsampling tech as well. Intel has relentlessly pushed driver updates to its GPUs that originally kind of sucked at launch, but now perform at a competitive level, with some games having jumped something like 40+% in performance since. Just as Nvidia is really clearly showing that they've kind of lost interest in the consumer GPU space and AMD hasn't been doing particularly well in terms of market share, it looks like Intel might be bringing some competition to this market, so good luck to them. Okay, and for my third story of the week, we have to talk about what is perhaps one of the most outrageous chip heists that I've ever heard of. An ex-Samsung Electronics executive reportedly stole secrets from its employer in order to recreate a full chip plant of theirs in China. That is right, he attempted to basically clone a whole fab. The clone facility was supposed to be just 1.5 kilometers away from the original, and the Korean executive succeeded in hiring around 200 people from Samsung and its Korean rival SK Hynix, where he also worked before. The whole heist happened in 2018 to 2019, and the guy failed because instead of the $6.2 billion that he needed to raise, he only got $350 million. This was supposed to be for a leading high-end memory chip plant, and can you imagine stealing everything from floor plans to 200 employees and all the things that you need for recreating a fab like this? That is theft on another level. Anyway, the guy was arrested and indicted in South Korea, and apparently he was supposed to be financed by an unnamed Taiwanese company, which then didn't come through. I really wonder which Taiwanese company would even want to have a memory chip fab in mainland China based on stolen Samsung tech, but believe it or not, this is somehow not completely unique. Just this week, Applied Materials, America's leading chip equipment maker, claimed over a dozen of its employees stole their chip tech on behalf of a Chinese firm, including a guy emailing sensitive documents to his personal email account when quitting, and then claiming that they were just souvenirs of his accomplishments. Nice. ASML claimed a similar theft story by employees just earlier this year as well. And of course, we shouldn't forget that Samsung is accused to have stolen much of its chip tech as well for good measure. Just the South Korean police alone said that they arrested 77 people involved in 35 cases of suspected industrial espionage over the last few months, so there's a lot going on. Talented engineers are so valuable that people are actually willing to go to jail for them. And so becoming one of those talented engineers is one of the best things you can do for your career. And nowhere on the internet can you do that better than over at Brilliant. Brilliant is the best place online to learn maths, science, computer science, and more. And what makes them special is that they have these incredibly intricate interactive classes for just about every little thing that you learn on the platform. You can pick an area that interests you, like maybe computer science or quantum computing, and you'll get a learning path to follow from beginner to advanced levels, with each topic being broken into small, digestible chunks full of exercises that really make you understand the fundamental learnings right away. Whether you're aiming to find a new job or you just want to get smarter, Brilliant has the right solutions for you. You can get a 30-day free trial at brilliant.org/TFC, and the first 200 people who sign up using that link will also get 20% off their annual premium subscription if they choose to get one. Check it out, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next Friday.